This is the Bar Steward's Enquiry.
Right? You're talking absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish.
In what way?
You were an underachiever in life. I saved your bacon one time. You were gone.
You handled that well. I couldn't save you. But you did the right thing.
Well, that's why you don't know anything about racing, John.
I didn't say I do.
Right?
I'm saying that...
What have you contributed to racing? You're one of these take-out merchants. Take out all you can.
And a very warm welcome to the Bar Stewards Enquiry Weekend podcast, covering the Saturday meetings, the big meetings on the telly. My name's Lee Keys of systembet.co.uk, and as always, my partner in crime. We nailed it again last week with Max Swiney, me, myself, and John Lang, John Joe's blog spot. Max Swiney did the business at the Irish Gypsy Fair, John, last week. What a weekend it was for us.
Unbelievable, wasn't it? Really, I couldn't imagine it winning like that when they were all queuing up to challenge. But these Aussies are so terrified they're going home to gym and dishing out a disappointing result. They just daren't there. They daren't pack it in. They just have to keep going.
I mean, it was a tremendous 1-2 for the yard. I just think it's an amazing show of his skills, if you like. You know, none of this wrap them in cotton wool poetic flair. Decided that, you know, he was going for the English guineas, the French guineas, the Irish guineas. You know, I think it's so refreshing to see when you see trainers wrap them in cotton wool, John, don't you think?
Well, I think the winner as well. I mean, it was only 2 weeks since it had come back from Leopardstown full of snot.
That's right, yeah.
You know, I mean, a lot of people would have said, well, we'll never make the derby now, we'll knock him off and we'll think about maybe bringing him back for Ascot in the SGFA. Now, he's knocked off the Irish guineas, he's thinking about the derby. He's looking very likely to run in the derby. You know, I mean, these gym Aussies, you stick a brush up their asses, they'll sweep up for you while they're running round.
I mean, like I said, it was brilliant to be involved in another Bar Steward special. I mean, like me and you never confer our selections, and
no.
You know, I mean, this is what makes the show. So I don't know what you're tipping again. You don't know what I'm tipping. I think it's fabulous that when we do have an agreement, and it's working quite well. I think Twitter loved it, YouTube loved it. So onwards and upwards. Right, we're going to start the show off this week with a mention about a great man that passed away in the last week, Barney Curley, a famous, renowned punter that basically ran the show with these multi-bets, with these gambles, with these. It was just an extraordinary punter. And John, I'd like you to tell me, just in your own words, like, you know, what you think about Barney as a whole, for racing, yourself. What about the Barney story?
Well, he was an absolute one-off, wasn't he? I mean, I don't think we'll ever see anybody succeed on the scale that he did. Right across the board in the game. I mean, not just the gambles, really. I mean, the horses he was involved with as well. I mean, he brought the likes of Forgive and Forget, Silver Book, you know, all horses such as them, to like the Dickinsons and Jimmy Fitzgerald, sourced those horses for him. I'm a Driver, that was another one that he was instrumental in getting over here. He was instrumental in setting up Don Cantillon as a trainer.
Yeah.
Don was working for Harry Thompson Jones, and he wanted to buy one of Van Dam's horses, a Sultan, and he was going to send it to Barney, and he had to get a home improvement loan out to buy the horse, Don Cantillon. And that's how close to the wind they were sailing with that one until they landed the gamble there. I mean, just an incredible fella, really. Straightened Detari out when Detari was having all his problems with the drugs and going off the rails.
Yeah.
Got him in with Gosden. excellent stuff there, really. I mean, they thought he could have been lost to the game. He was drifting, going nowhere. And Barney probably saved his career, really.
Yeah.
He was very instrumental in a lot of Leicester's comeback. I mean, he more or less accompanied him over on his trips to Ireland and that, acting as like a ipso facto man to take grit and fix problems and things. Starting rides out for him and that, and just a genuinely gifted fella, and a terrific punter. I mean, you couldn't find anybody better, really. I mean, at landing gambles, and he will be so missed. Even though it's like ages since he actually did anything in the sport, really. I mean, he knocked off, when was it, about 2012?
Yeah.
But, I mean, he just a marvellous man, and as I say, he'll be much missed.
Yeah, I can go with that. I mean, there'll be some in some quarters that'll say, well, why are we championing somebody that was either, in Sir Mark Prescott's words, no or go? I mean, basically, a lot of us denounce current trainers like that or current owners like that. It's either no or go, because, as we know, you couldn't run a successful levy off. If everyone did that, if everyone did no or go, it really would make a mockery of the entire sport. But so I get that point of view, but at the same time, the actual romance I think he brought into racing, in terms of, it's proper Dick Francis stuff. These are the plots that he achieved. I mean, one of my favourite stories from his book was the Graham story, because I'm thinking, well, he did his father, he did his own father. I mean, his father sent him to the track with the ground, and said, administer this powder or substance to the dog before half an hour or an hour before he races, and he can take care of it. And in other words, his dad didn't want the dog to win on that particular night. And of course, Barney saw the odds, and it was like 5-1, 6-1, 7-1, 8-1. And Barney thought, well, it's a big price, this, knowing that full well it can win. And Barney didn't administer the substance, and lo and behold, the dog won by about 5 lengths. Barney collects his 8. His dad rings him furious, saying, "What's gone off? What's gone off?" And Barney just says, I gave the substance, And I just think, what a story. I think that epitomizes how he thinks and how you've got to be in the game, in a way, to be a Barney Curley. You've got to be a total bastard,
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's a fantastic story. I urge anyone, if you haven't read Barney's book, I urge anyone to read Barney's book, because it's full of absolute brilliant tales. And as I said, he kept it quiet. He kept a tight ship. He told his staff, "I'll be loyal to you. I'll pay you well. I'll reward you well. I'll look after you. I'll be a friend to you. But if you ever repeat any information out of this yard to anyone, you're out. You're at the lot. I'll clear. I'll pack your suitcase. You're gone in the morning." And I think that's how he works. And as I said, it's a blueprint. If there's any gambling yards out there, that's the blueprint. It's loose lips sink ships, and that's how the game works. But yeah, rest in peace, Barney. You've provided a lot of fun and definitely controversy, and probably one of the greatest YouTube videos of all time, John, that's still there, with Luke Harvey and Big Mac.
And part of our title sequence.
Absolutely, we will keep it in our title scenes forever, because basically it's legendary. It won't ever be beaten. You'll never see that on live TV again. You'll never see that on a racing channel ever again, as long as you're alive, ever. You'll never see drama like that. That was just sheer, just poetry. Yeah. So, right, we'll move on to the questions for this part of the show. And we've got we have 3 questions for the show this evening. And Chris O'Rourke is going with the first one. And he says, hi, guys. He goes, do you think the BHA and the Irish Horse Racing Association should have someone monitoring the Betfair markets for each race and monitoring betting patterns? John?
Well, this is quite interesting, actually, because we've sat and had a drink with the people that actually do this on behalf of the BHA, haven't we?
We have indeed.
We've sat on the champagne lawn at York with the Berkeley here, and 3 or 4 of the offending articles have turned up and helped the sell us to a free glass or 2. Yeah, they already exist, Chris, is the short answer. Now, convincing them that something untoward has gone on, or even convincing them to take a close look, wouldn't be the easiest thing. It'd be up there with knitting fog, actually. But yeah, they do exist. They have an office. I believe they have computer access to Betfair. I know they have a backdoor key to Betfair, and they can see who's laying what.
Yep.
But considering the advantages they've got, they don't seem to achieve many convictions or get many people warned off. So I just tend to bracket them with the same old routine as a lot of the people who work for the BHA, etc. As people who like the car, they like the salary, and they fancy the pension, but they don't want to rock the gravy boat too much.
I mean, a long time ago, Betfair signed a memorandum of understanding with the BHA authority, basically to provide access to accounts and betting accounts, obviously for security reasons. But like John says, Chris, it literally is. It's very difficult in this modern world to bring people to task and to prove any wrongdoing. As we saw with the Kieran Fallon case in the Old Bailey, you literally, I mean, they made a mess of it, but it literally is very difficult to actually bring criminal justice to anyone doing anything like that untoward. So all they can do, really, I would say, in this modern times, is basically shut the Betfair accounts, but then they just open new ones. So it's very difficult to police the sport, and that's just how it is. I don't think that will ever change going forwards unless the law changes, where it's basically a criminal offence to, as in jail time for laying a horse that you're connected with, or if you're found to be committing fraud, which in essence is what you're doing. But no, it's a bit of a license to print, I'm afraid, Chris. That's how the game is. Next question. What are the worst yards for information? Asked Lorne Marvo, a friend of the show. He's on Twitter, and he actually adds, he says areas must be right up there for basically saying it's geese, end up as swans, but they obviously, are heavily bet. John, any sort of yards that you think of the past where the information seems to be crap?
I think the current yards, I think my absolute nemesis at the minute is Kevin Ryan's. Everything I get out of that yard seems to be absolutely stinking rotten. In all honesty, I mean, sometimes I get some really detailed thoughts from people in the yard. This is like an 85 to 90 horse, and all the rest of it. I mean, you can bet your bollocks it'll run to about 43. That is one yard that just continually comes up short for me, where I mean, I'm like at the point where any information I just studiously ignore, because it doesn't have to come from the same source either. It's just whoever gives me Kevin Ryan else, I'd be better off shooting them, really. Absolutely terrible. I mean, there's the usual Codswell comes out to Mick Easterby's yard. And if he's spouting anything on his Facebook page or anything like that, or bigging up at one his granddaughter's going to ride, you can guarantee 3 or 4 people will ring you up to thinking they're giving you some exclusive about that. And they'd be run like crap. We couldn't tell you if it was going to rain unless you were selling an umbrella. So, you wouldn't expect to get any worthwhile information out of that yet. I think probably the worst yard I've ever known for information was Peter Walwyn's. That was absolutely terrible years ago. I mean, even going back to when the late great Joe Mercer was riding for him. Some absolute stinking stuff come out of there. I don't know whether it was all stemming from his missus bonk or whether Peter himself had a hand in it, but oh God, some absolute scammers. There's some bad yards out there, for instance.
There is, and I mean, the thing for me with information, and I'd advise anyone that gets information from yards to really take most of it with a pinch of salt. And the reason I say this is because a lot of horses in yards, especially Newmarket, are keen, and it's the keenest ones that the work riders like, because they're the ones that give the most for that 4 furlong, like tear up, if you like. And and it's like, and then they put figures on it. Oh well, this worked with this Group 3 winner, and worked as well as. But it just might have been keen as anything for 4 furlongs. Then you see it on the racetrack, and it's pulling like Callum Best, and it just drops out into 5th, 6th. There's so many of those that are very keen sorts, and I always remember the best information I've received from yards are when an actual work rider will say, "Yeah, this is slow." Then you look at the pedigree and you go, "Well, it's by far out of a Rainbow Quest mare." It's like, well, it's going to be slow. And when a work rider says it's slow, and it makes its debut in a 1.25 mile maiden for a good yard, good team. Right, that's when you get your prices, because the work riders aren't backing them. They say, it's slow, this is slow. I've seen so many information bets that they said they're slow that absolutely bolt up, because it's as if they can't even compute that, 1.25 mile maidens as a 2-year-old or even as a 3-year-old, it's a lot more than running 4 furlongs, the lime kilns. It's not the same. And I think that's where the info breaks down, because something can work all over something else. It's usually because they're keen, and that's what I found, that most info bets, or really good info bets, where they're raving about, this can't get beat, this is just a machine. They're very keen. They're very, very keen, and I think that's it. That's how I found info over the years. That the best info is not necessarily the ones that the work riders are actually tipping. As long as I can get something that, this one by far out of a Rainbow Quest mare could actually work to, it's working to 70-ish. Well, that's good enough for me, because that will mean that when it runs over 1.25 miles, because they don't work them over 1.25 miles, unusually, rarely they will. When it actually makes its debut over 1.25 miles, it might run to 85. But no one's backing it. So you're getting 5s and 6s for an horse that basically they think is slow, because they've never seen it run over 1.25 miles. And I just think that's how you've got to. If ever any of our listeners get involved with work rider information, that's what you're going to see if you pay for it. And trust me, I've paid for numerous information out of many yards and found by trial and error that it's absolutely worthless over time. There's for every good bet, or every superstar 2-year-old, you get told, you'll get at least a dozen yaks that are just hard pulling, hanging effigies. So it's just not for me. I don't think yard information. Thanks for the question.
I think the only way yard information works for you really is if you're there yourself all the time.
I think that's it. I mean,
you get a handle on the horses, and whatever. That's the.
Yeah, you did this for years, and you can apply. I think that's it. You can apply your own judgment, and you can say, well, I thought that was a bastard, or this hangs a bit, or this could do with a different piece of headgear, or a different bridle, and I think that's the knowledge that you brought to the table.
If you got people just chucking snippets out at you, it's something you just can't paste together, really. It's a story without a beginning, middle, and end.
For sure.
And maybe the end bit where you just end up doing your bollocks in.
So listeners, do not pay for galloping for. It's generally no good. I can tell. I can save you years of pain, suffering, financial losses. It's not going to work. Right. We'll move on to the final question before we'll get some tips for the pink button section. And it's a moan from JCC Punter on Twitter, and it's my kind of moan, really. He says 7 jumps meetings across UK and Ireland over the weekend. Why are we churning out this substandard tosh at the end of May? And I'll add to that, why is there 8 meetings on a Saturday, John? What's happening?
It's unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, there's no thought for rationalising this programme at all. I mean, they're just ploughing on regardless. Nobody wants to get their arms around the problem. You get to Monday, we've got a Zetland Gold Cup at Redcar that's worth about 30% of what it was worth 15 years ago. And, on and on we plough, meeting after meeting after meeting, just dross upon dross. And there is not a dissenting voice in the VHA. Nobody's standing up and saying anything other. It's just...
Nope.
It's as though it just has to happen like this. And, they're going to get to the bottom of the box eventually. And I honestly don't know what they'll do then, because they're just so devoid of ideas. There's nobody there that's got a blind clue what to do about it. And, they're just heading for the cliff edge, and nobody's hitting the brakes.
No. It's a sport that's run by chimpanzees, and they have absolutely no idea or clue what they're doing. And I mean, somebody like myself, I can moan. This is what I do for a living. I'm absolutely knackered. I cannot stress how tired I am. Like, literally, it's impossible to cover all the meetings properly. And I think that's why I could be suffering as well. I've had a couple of bad punting weeks, midweeks especially, and I just think, it takes its toll, and I think it takes its toll on myself. What's it doing to the punter that can't keep up? He's thinking, he's trawling through result after result after result. Tuesday this week, 7 meetings on a Tuesday. Are you for real? This is just mental. And I just think, with the funding in the sport, I just think the bookmakers are just calling the tunes, and no one's interested. 7 meetings a day. Half of the results I can't even remember off the top of my head. Someone said to me, "Oh, do you remember what won the first today at Carlisle?" Well, there's been that many meetings. A long time's passed since then.
So you remember Carlisle was on?
Yeah, it shouldn't have been really. It's absolutely. It's pulled my pants down today and opened the cheeks. So yeah. But yeah, great moaning question from JCC Punter. We love a moan. That's what it's all about. But anyway, we'll move on now to the action that you're listening for, because you love to either press blue or pink, and I don't blame you for pressing pink, especially this weekend, because the racing is quite tough, John. And
it's horrendous, isn't it?
It is. We'll go for the telebox races because punters love a telebox race. And we'll start with the 145 at Haydock. It's the 6 furlong Betway handicap, class 3, 0 to 95, The Leeds manager is favourite, Bielsa at 5-1.
Tremendous hate, isn't it? Obviously, Bielsa's won a 93, I think, on heavy ground. So I think this ground off 95 ought not to be too much of an issue. I thought the run at York last time when it was fairly well fancied was quite nice. Should be in pretty much peak form for this, I would have thought. The one that interested me was the system horse, really, hyper-focused. Ran okay on debut. I think it was only went about 4.5 lengths in total, which is near enough for one of Happy Tim's. We've got Thick Dave up, who rides Haydock particularly well, the sprint track, I think. This horse has run well here before, run well on shit ground, double-digit price. That'll do for me.
Fair enough, John. So John is going for, I'm just scrolling down my list, Hyperfocus, trained by Tim East to be ridden by David Allen. I'm just going to check the best price available on that, just to make sure that it's available at 11-1, John. So a nice each way selection from John there. And then I'm going to roles reverse here. I'm going to turn into blogger. And I'm going for Bielsa. It's one of the better bets of the weekend, but not necessarily now at the prices. I think the value's getting squeezed. It's like someone squeezing the juice out of a finely tuned piece of fruit. And to me, Bielsa looks to have really strong claims in this. He was unfortunate at York because he was caught up in quite a little pace battle. And the winner came from off that pace battle, and he still kept going quite nicely to finish 5th. And I think the Brucey bonus was, he even got dropped £1 for that, which I thought was quite generous because I thought he ran a stormer. That £1 might make the difference in a tight finish. And I just think he's the each way, like, thievery, if you like. But it's getting quite tight now at 5s. It was sort of 8-1 early this week. It was 13-2 earlier on in the day. And the Bet365 thieves of all like, it's like they get up at like 12, they get up at midday and then they troll the cards, and then at 4 o'clock they start piling in, and they've knocked Bielsa into about 5. So Bielsa would be my choice there in the 145. I'll say I think a knocking bet, and John goes for Hyperfocus. The next race is the 220 at Haydock. It's the 5 furlong Betway Achilles Stakes, a listed event, a listed contest, and a rather, I would say, underwhelming affair, if I'm allowed to say, for a listed contest. El Astronaute heads the markets for John Quingyard, won at Chester on reappearance. Sort of joint favourites with Moskill at the 9-2 mark. John, have you any strong views on this?
I have a strong view on the word underwhelmed, actually. I'm just wondering where the word whelmed came from. You know, you can be underwhelmed or overwhelmed. What is whelmed when you're getting whelmed? You
so
know?
Underwhelmed. That should be normal. So we're all whelmed.
Yeah.
So when we get up, yeah.
Bit odd. Anyway, Al Jardy for the winner factoring Morley family has decent for a bit of breath. I think there's good form on with digging the ground, and I thought that could go well. Another one I thought could go well at the price just out the back of my hand was Count Dorsey, simply because he seems incredibly suited to this sprint track at Haydock, because he can hit a little bit of a flat spot after a couple of furlongs, and I think getting a breather into him is quite important in his races. And where he's been running at York of late, and it's more or less do it all in one breath, I think this track will show him in a much better light. And despite the figures being a bit skew with, I mean, I know he's well wrong with Tarbo, etc. I think this will run really well tomorrow. I mean, if you're a figures man, I think Tarbosh is probably the one, really. Mickey's given him a sighter after his wind up, and you'd expect him to run pretty well, really. Tight race. I don't feel compelled to have a bet.
No, El Astronauti, I felt fell in at Chester really because I've never seen a horse make that much ground out of the traps like it did that day. Must have made 2 or 3 lengths on the field, and it's basically held on falling in. Now it could have needed run a little bit as well. So I'm not saying that El Astronauti won't win or anything. It's just that it did everything right at Chester. It could not do any more right. He's not getting any younger. He's 8 years old now. Am I interested as a 9-2 sort of market leader? Not really. I like the one that you mentioned a little bit, Al Jardi. I just felt that his profile's really progressive, even though he's 6. Last season, over 5, he was a bit of a revelation. He destroyed Arecibo by 6.5, then beat Orvar, then ran in a listed race and obviously found an absolutely on fire Dakota Gold too much. But he had Moss Gill behind him that day. And then this season, his reappearance was over 6, where he led everywhere bar the line, just got done on the line, over 6, then back to 5. It's a solid piece of form, really. 5th in the Palace House. I would say that's probably the strongest piece of form in the race currently. And also the reason why is that he was on the wrong side for me. Everything came sort of middle to stands, and he was left on his own towards the far side. And I just don't think that suited him. So I think he's a little better. I'll upgrade him for that. So for me, on a very substandard Achilles, I would say Al Jardi has every chance in that as an each way bet. But like you say, John, it's a very tricky heat, but that would be my choice. We go on to the principal race of the day, though not many punters will see it as the principal race of the day. It's the Betway Pinnacle Stakes, a Group 3 event over 1.5 miles. And the favourite in the race is the Roger Varian trained Cabaletta, who sports blinkers for the first time at 7-4, John. Any views here?
It's going to be horrible, isn't it? Really. We had that good filly of Miss Rousings entered in this. I think probably frightened everything away. The one that won at Ascot, and then Alpinista was taken out right near the death, and we're left with Oriental Mistake from a 3-spiked attack on the race from Miss Rousing. And really, to me, it looks between that one and Cabaletta. And I'm inclined to side with Oriental Mistake purely because the trying the blinkers on Cabaletta. She's a master craftsman, which I don't think is always a sign of utter bravery. I think he gets his share of craven cowards. And I think really it's hard to make a case for much of ourselves. Filly's in bad ground, really. I mean, it's the needy and the greedy punting days. I couldn't be recommending a bet to anybody in all conditions. Pressure selection, I'd say Oriental Mistake, but
I can go with that, and I can go with why you say no selection, because I'm doing exactly the same. We're a podcast and we're offering no selections. roll up punters, roll up sports fans. But yes, I completely concur, John. The thing for me is Cabaletta, and this is where I think connections are thick. What was this horse doing over 1.25 miles last time? She's basically a stayer. Mile and a quarter at York is just not. I mean, all right, you can say, well, it's just a pipe opener. So if it was a pipe opener, why then do you go blinkers next time? Is if the jockey's got off and said she's not putting it in? I mean, well, she's not going to put it in over 1.25 miles off a crawl, which is what it was. Queen Power just had far superior speed to anything in the race. It was a bit of a farce, really, the way it was run, and it just makes you laugh that the jockey's probably got off. They've listened to him. They've said, no, she's not doing it. She's not putting it in. And on come the blinkers. And I just think this is typical. It's just idiots. There's no. I don't. I mean, I know what you're saying about that. She could, she could have ideas of her own. She might do, but I just don't think a run over a mile and a quarter in the Middleton is
No,
enough evidence to say she's not doing it. So yeah, it's a very very tough eat to punt in, because if the blinkers have a good effect, they might have a bad effect. Then what do you do? It's very difficult to come up with a selection in that. It's almost impossible. And speaking of impossible, John, we move on to the 3:30 race, the Betway John O'Gaunt Stakes.
this is an absolute beaut, isn't it?
I mean, we start off with Safe Voyage, the market leader, 130. And I'll start you off on the race. I mean, the Safe Voyage of last season would be a penalty kick. The Safe Voyage that ran in the Lockings, who didn't look to be moving great, by the way, in the closing stages, and who was eased off. And he's out 14 days later, and the quandary is, what do you do with this one?
It was terrible in the Lockings, wasn't he?
Yep.
Now, all I could think of there was, because I thought he might have had as well, I think he must have twisted his shoe or something that, was something that was impeding him at the time, but was easily rectified. Otherwise, God knows why John Quinn's running him, it has to be something that was easily put right out, I thought. But you can't back him.
Is it a positive that they're bringing him out quickly? I mean, John Quinn's been quoted today as saying they've been very happy with his work this week. This is the quandary that I think all punters need to know, because he's like, is that a positive or a negative?
Well, he's probably had this race in mind all the time. He won't be under much pressure from the owner. He's won it before, so I mean, the owner won't be arguing too much about whether it runs or not. But of course, it takes you all, didn't it? I mean, you got with thanks there from the inform Haydock you had, rated 110 now. It's only 4-year-old. I think on the balance of things, despite that not having had a run, I think I'd be more likely to chuck in with that one than the John Quinn horse. I mean, Agus is quoted as saying he wants to get at Westcott with the Guilt of Cambridge. There'd be no point running her in that if you couldn't win this.
No.
So I'd throw him with thanks, I think.
He's quite upbeat as well, I guess. He's in his comments, he says that he is trying to get her to Ascot for the Duke of Cambridge. She's done very well, and she's much better than last year and much stronger. Really strong comments there from Agus on with thanks. So for listeners, if you like that fillet, certainly Willie Agus seems the more confident of any trainer in the race. But anyway, as I said, if Safe Voyage returns to anywhere like the level he was last year, then I think the rest might be in a little bit of trouble. But it's a very, very difficult race to tip in. We go over to Chester, John, for the one race round the ground track that ITV are showing, which is the 240 race. It's a 7.5 furlong handicap, Class 2 event. And the favourite is the David Barron trained Another Bat at around the 4-1 mark, I believe, 9-2 mark, something like that. David Barron, Another Bat. Any of you here?
Yeah, I think this is a little bit easier, actually, even though it's Chester and it's swampy ground. I think Edge to Lab is the one to be with. So a nice draw. Showed some good early last time. I think the race could have brought him on a bit as well. And even the shearing of improvement, it says this one got really close. So I'm quite hopeful of a good run there from Edge to Lab.
Yeah, the Ian Williams trained runner. He's
drawn one,
Yep, gets the draw. effective around this course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, can't really not. You'd think that would run really well. Boardman was very impressive at York last time, but this would be a rather huge step up from that Class 4 affair. I found this race quite difficult to solve. Again, you'll have to wait on the ground, I think, because what I would say is there are horses in here that might be able to show a lot more than what they've been showing, depending on the ground. Now, for example, what I say is Via Serendipity of Charlie Fellows and Jamie Spencer. He's drawn in 9, which isn't ideal here, but if they go a good lick and the ground is riding on top of good, it might do. This is the thing. The temperatures are drying. It depends if Chester get a shower. The current ground, I think, will be good at Chester. And I do think if the ground just firms up a little bit, something like Via Serendipity might just get a real strong pace to run at and might just cause a bit of a shock. But again, it's only a suggestion. I think it's a really tough race. I don't mind John's selection at all. I think it's pretty solid from an inside draw. But again, very tough weekend's racing. So we move on to the 3 races at Beverley on ITV. And it's a bit. I don't mind Beverley as a course. I like visiting there. I do like this Hillary Needler meeting. I'd like to see the meetings, the Fillies race get restored to listed status. It's sad that I think it's fallen from grace over the years, but nevertheless, that's where we head. The Hillary Needler, the 2:00 race. The favourite is Kyber Crystal, trained by Adrian Keatley, heavily backed, absolutely fortunes for this, John. Has knocked it right into about the 7-4 mark. Any view on the Hillary Needler?
Yeah, I've got a bit of a big price play, actually. I like Gilded of Carl Burks. This ran only last week in York. And a fairly impressive winner called the Organiser, who was a warm order all day, actually. He travelled like a really good horse, I thought, in the race and put the race to bed fairly properly. And I can see the Organiser, going really well in a race at Ascot, if truth be told. I think it's a definite Ascot 2-year-old. This thing was right with him till about the furlong pole. Given the fact that Carl's horses tend to come on a lot for debut, I thought, sure enough, no action to suggest a bit of cut won't come and miss. And with that experience under the old belt, I think 20-1 is very, very sporting in this. There's no end of novice events he could have gone for with this. But instead, he's forming part of a 3-pronged attack on this race for the always smiling, always popular Nick Bradley. And
detestable man.
Yeah, well, so I mean, I think this is worth a few quid here out of the 3 box. I think this can go really well here.
Good shout. So we like a big price on the Barsters. We've thrived off giving big price winners, and we do love a big in a race like this. And I think while we're at it, let's go dual prong big prices in the race. Right, I've got a good stat here. It's a stat attack. We love a good stat, especially when it's this. The Cool Silk partnership, right? Would you believe, right? Are 4 from 7 in the Brian Yeardley and Hillary Needler. 4 from 7, right? They sent out Prince of Lear in 2016. That won the Brian Yeardley on debut. They sent out Sheikah Labana. That won the Hillary Needler on debut in 2017. They sent out Curley. That won the Hillary Needler on second start in 2018. And then Summer Sands won the Brian Yeardley on second start in 2019. 4 from 7. These guys are shrewd because obviously they buy sometimes to sell, sometimes to keep. They're a very, very shrewd outfit. Now, ironically, they run a Prince of Lear here. The one that they won the race with. That's Jazzy Princess, Prince of Lear, Acclamation Mare, obviously one that they've bred. I'll be honest, I'm not as strong on this one as I am on the other one in the Brian Yeardley. And I'll tell you the reasons why when we get onto that. But Jazzy Princess, I thought, with their record, they're not here for a day out. This will be trained to the minute. And I just thought, sporting, throw away a fiver on Jazzy Princess, just a throwaway bet, big price to go with John's Gilded, and then you can cheer on 2 big priced horses in the Hillary Needler. Good stuff. So we move on to the second TV. Beverley getting 3 ITV races. Saturday, brilliant. We go on to the second race on the Beverley card on TV. It's the 3:10. It is not the Brian Yeardley anymore. Brian Yeardley's took his ball home, and it's now the Continental 2-year-old Trophy Condition Stakes. Poor Brian. So the 5 furlong event, Ryan's Party is the favourite at 11 to 4. John, any view on this? What you liked?
You're gonna shit this, honestly. The one I had in mind is Shirts of Mile.
We've done it. We've got another one. We've done it. Go on, I'll let you explain.
Well, basically, I mean, these are already explained to a certain extent. These people have tended to have it right off in these races. The target, this sort of thing, the Hillary Needler and this one. And this is by Prince of Lear, owned by the Coal Silk Partnership. And, well, yeah, just back it,
I mean, the thing with this was, the reason why I liked it, the other one they bred themselves, right? This one, they've actually gone out and had to spend some serious wonga, 105,000 guineas, at the breeze up. And they're quite shrewd at this. They tend to spot really good breeze up types. They obviously supporting the sire because it's theirs, Prince of Lear, blah blah blah. And I just think they know the time of day. It literally is that. And I just think Richard Fahey, Paddy Mathers, this will be absolutely trained to the minute. It's got stall 1. It's a Bastard special. It's not an amazing price at around 9 to 2. I think 9 to 2-ish. Let me just check on that. I need to check. Let's make sure that we're on the right page of this one. We are getting 11 to 2. 11 to 2 is the Bastard special. Again, this is not fixed. I know it sounds like we're both copying. We're not. Literally, this is not fixed. 11 to 2. It's a Bastard special. Plough on straight some oil. I'm just looking at the each way terms, what we got. We've got, 6 runners in the worst each way bet in the world. Each way 11 to 2 places. You'd never do 7 runners. Obviously, 5 runners would be better for each way 2 places. But 6 runners is not the worst each way terms in the world. So if you fancy each way, that's up to you. But we'll advise it win on the nose. We're not messing about. We don't claim each way bets as winners. We're on the nose. So it's straight as Moyle on the nose. 11 to 2. The Bastard special. Well done, John. We've done it again. Could be following up from last week on the Irish Guineas winner. Right, we go to the final television race of tonight's show. Last but not least, it is the Bet365 handicap. That's the 3:45 race at Beverley, and that's over a trip of 7.5 furlongs. Sibark is 9 to 4 favourite for the Screaming Kilt, John.
Yeah, I think the Kilt's going to send everybody home happy actually with this. I can't see it getting a lot of competition on the front end. It's got a nice handy draw. The rest of them will probably all be playing jockeys for a 3 or 4 furlong run down into that bottom bend. By which time I think Gentle Ben Curtis will have made hay and gone for home. So I'm expecting to see back to win. I don't know whether I want to back it at 9 to 4, but I think it'll win.
Well, what a great end to the show where we can agree on a special and then totally disagree on our final selection. Sibark, for me, I'm dead against it for the simple reason it doesn't handle the ground. The last time it ran on soft ground, it got beat by one of Stan Moore's down at Goodwood. Whole lot of fun. That isn't a lot of fun because it's 1 from 18 and the only time it's won is beating Sibark on soft ground. And I just don't think this has got the action. It's Oasis Dream on the damn side. Dark Angels I'm not keen on anyway. And I just think the ground might hinder this. And I would prefer, they're not well handicapped horses. I don't think anything's well handicapped in here, but I think the Byron's Choice, Queen Sergeant form line, I think those are the two to concentrate on. Queen Sergeant ran 4th recently at Thirst behind the Chester favourite that we just talked about, another bat in another race at Chester that's on the TV. Queen Sergeant was 4th in that, had Broken Spear behind him that's a rival here. No idea why Broken Spear is a shorter price than Queen Sergeant, maybe because of the draw a little bit. But Byron's Choice I'd want as cover as well because he loves this track. He's run well 3 times here from 3 visits, and I just think his running the Thirst Cup wasn't as bad as it looked really. He's caught on heels, never got a clean run. So I thought Byron's Choice at around the 9-10 to 1 mark, Queen Sergeant around the 10 to 1 mark. Those are the two of value against the Kilts 9 to 4 Jolly that I'll be hoping to get beat. And that will, I think, do us job. We've had a cracking show. We are back. Myself and John on Sunday as normal with the sermon. Get your topics, anything you want us to discuss, please get in touch by Twitter, YouTube, any of the channels, John Joe's Blogspot, anywhere you want to get in touch.
We're early next week, aren't we, with the derby?
We could be. We'll discuss the timings of next week's show, the Derby Oaks preview on the Sunday sermon. I'm not quite sure what time we'll go on that, but as I said, it's an action-packed sermon this Sunday. We've got plenty to talk about, and I want some decent questions in. So I hope you've enjoyed today's show. We've got another Barstool special for you, or even on a crap weekend like this. We won't let you down. That's all from me and John. Bye for now.